Okay, welcome everybody for joining us again this week. This is our second broadcast for the Hangout on Air for the CSP4HS. We have two special guests with us who are national leaders in the CS Principles project. So we have Lien Diaz from College Board. Lien's a Senior Director of the AP program at College Board. And we have Owen Astrachan with us from Duke, who's been teaching CS Principles for many years and well known in the computer science education community. So we're really happy to have both Lien and Owen with us. So most of the discussion today will be Lien and Owen talking a lot about computer science principles and giving you all an opportunity to answer questions. And some of the questions have come up over the Piazza site, so if you would please follow us on the Piazza site and begin posting your questions there. I want to start with apologizing for the delay on the two last lessons. I actually led some day-long professional development the past 2 days. I thought I would be able to knock it out. The lectures are already there. The problem with these quizzes. So when we do these self-quizzes, it takes a lot of coding to get the answers and stuff set up. So the lessons are there, but I want to make sure the quizzes are in place. So if you'll hang on with us, we'll get those out to you soon. Next week, we will start with programming, and next Thursday, not Friday, we'll have our Hangout on Air, and we'll have Dan Garcia with us from Berkeley, who's working with the Beauty and Joy of Computing project with CS Principles and the SNAP team. So let's go ahead and get started. So Lien and Owen, welcome to our Hangout on Air. And maybe Lien, if you'd like to start off with some thoughts on CS Principles and from the College Board perspective.
Okay, sure. Hi, my name is Lien Diaz. I am a Senior Director with the AP program, and I am responsible for the AP curriculum and content development for AP Computer Science. I think I just wanted to start out by saying that there's been a lot of folks that have been involved in the development of the Computer Science Principles curriculum framework. And we've been working on that development for many years now, and we have a very stable curriculum framework for the course. And so the AP program is now poised to develop this course as an advanced placement course, where we have attestations from over 100 colleges who indicate that they would provide credit and/or placement for the course. And we're continuing to work to gather more information about what, ultimately that will look like when the course launches, because what we're doing now in preparation to launch the course as an advanced placement course is developing the exam that must accompany the course. And I can talk a little bit about what the makeup of the exam is looking like. It will contain many similar components as many other AP exams, but there are some differences as well too. And also, I think there may be some questions about the teacher support slate that the College Board will develop in support of the launch of the course. Things like we will have a course and exam description that will delineate all the outcomes, the content and skills of the course, and it will also contain sample questions to provide more insight into the correlation from the curriculum to the exam. And we also will be providing things like an AP practice exam, just like, I should say, all of our other AP courses where course authorized teachers, will have access to a secured practice exam that they can use to help their students become better prepared for success with the exam. Which leads me to another topic that I'm available to respond to, and that is, what do teachers need to do to become prepared to teach an AP course from the College Board's perspective, and that's really focused around what is needed for the AP course audit. So I'm happy to, help with any of that information and help answer questions around those topics. Jeff, is that enough, or would you like to address?
That would be great. Maybe Owen can say a few words, and both of you can do a back and forth, and we'll see what kind of questions start to emerge on Piazza. Is that okay?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Owen, can you share some thoughts with us, please?
Sure. It's nice to be with you somewhat live. Many of you may have seen some of the videos that I was on early in the course, giving you a kind of an overview, and then I'm sure you're up to speed and on Unit 2 and on to Unit 3 whenever that's coming up about bits and bytes and all the other great parts of computer science principles. You are all, some of you are, I guess, actual pioneers in the Piazza site. You're in the pioneers group, and all the rest of you are pioneers on trying to understand computer science principles. And I was going to just let you know where some of the other people doing computer science principles are, and to do that I'm going to try to show you a map, and I think you might be able to see that map now too. Jeff, can you tell me if that map is going out to everybody?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. So for people, this is someone's official pilot schools. Let me come back one more. So this is 300 schools over the course of the last 2 years that have filled out a little form on csprinciples.org saying, I'm interested in computer science principles. And we're going to make sure that all the people that have filled out that form get some information. But in general, you'll find that csprinciples.org right now and a microsite that College Board will be building for computer science principles soon are going to be the place to go to find out what's up with the course. What are the performance tasks? What are the course and curriculum look like? You'll be able to find that information there. This just shows you where people are that are interested in teaching computer science principles, at least that have expressed that interest over the last couple of years. And we made this using data tools that you can use in your course too, that I'm sure you'll be talking about at some point during this MOOC. This is a list of, I put official schools in quotes. You can see a lot of different symbols. The stars are the official College Board pilots that are running through the project that Lynn and I work on together. But there are a lot of other graphics that you can see. So for example, down here in Alabama, you can see a lot of folks working on the first part of the Alabama project and the second part. I know some of you are on this MOOC as well. Some of the people hanging out on the broadcast part are part of the Alabama project. Jeff is one of the key people in there. And we can see a few people in California. It looks like a lot of these in the Midwest and on the East Coast. And this is both NSF projects that have their own version of computer science principles in many cases, and the Project Lead the Way course, which is underway in more schools, I guess, right now than probably any other single version of computer science principles. As you're all learning, there are many ways that you can implement the computer science principles framework. I know that some people wanted to know, hey, if I want to just start teaching, what do I need to do? And as Lynn mentioned when she started talking, once this becomes an official AP course, to call your course an AP course, you'll have to go through an audit, as is the case with all AP courses. For right now, while this is a pilot, you can teach a computer science principles course using your own materials, using materials that you get from those that you're learning on this MOOC and that you get pointers to. But there are several national projects that are trying to push out materials to make it possible for people just to pick them up and go without changing them, and also for some people to say, well, that's not the greatest thing for my school, but it's a good start and I can add my own flavor to it. And I know you're going to hear from one of those next week on this Hangout on Air when you talk to Dan Garcia, or talk with Dan Garcia from the Beauty and Joy of Computing project, and he's been in charge of SNAP and has a lot of useful resources for his class. I'm going to give you a couple of other resources here just in terms of URLs so that you'll know, if I want to teach, where can I go to find things? And these will be part of what's available to you through Piazza. But you can see here, for example, that in Texas, they have a course that they're using to get teachers in Texas up to speed on computer science principles. I've given the URL there, and rather than dwell on it here. We'll make sure that you can have this on Piazza. There's a course that I know you've heard about, at least through Piazza. There have been some posts about the mobile CSP course. I have a couple of resources there that you can find out information where they're using Android and App Inventor as the main piece of how they get things across. And then the Project Lead the Way course is something that your whole school or district has to fall into, and I'm hoping that they'll actually make some of their material available to those that don't want to use their entire course sequence, but that's another useful resource to have. So that's just some ways you can get started, where if you have a question about how do I get started with this course, as a quick prelude to where we've heard questions from those that have piloted the course this year on the College Board pilot, and we had a weekly hangout with them during the year. A lot of questions and comments have come up on the performance tasks, and I can see that in the chat window we're seeing some more information about the performance tasks. So I'll just kind of stop there for a second so that Lynn and I can both have a chance to look at those questions and make sure we get them. But I want to leave you with, there are a lot of resources that are going to be available to teachers that are interested in computer science principles, both from the national efforts that are underway, sponsored either by the National Science Foundation or those that are sponsored by nonprofits like Project Lead the Way and eventually Code.org. But you will be able to find all of these on a couple of different websites. I know that when Brooke and I had our video that we showed you at the beginning, we told you about CS10K Community and csprinciples.org. We'll make sure that all those materials are there as well. And I'll pause for a minute.
Lynn and Owen, can you see some of the questions that are coming up?
I can see the ones that have been pasted into the sidebar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Jeff, are you moderating? Would you be directing the questions?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Deepa. Go ahead.
All right. Lynn, the first one looks like it's for you. How do the performance tasks plus the AP exam add up to equal the 1 to 5 score for getting college credit? So I'm going to pause there at about multiple questions. So this first one probably Lynn can take.
Sure, I'm happy to take that one. So if we can imagine, what the current I'm going to use the current AP Computer Science A exam looks like. It has a multiple choice section, and then it has a free response section. The plan for the AP Computer Science Principles exam is similar in that nature, where there will be an objectively scored section, a multiple choice section. It's a little bit different because we plan for that to be a computer-based exam, so that we'll have a little more flexibility with the item types that would be possible to include in that objectively scored section. But that is, would be scored like any other AP multiple choice exam portion. The free response portion of the Computer Science A exam is given to students during the designated AP exam day. We will not, for Computer Science Principles, there currently is no plan to have a free response section that would be given to students on the AP exam day. Instead, we have what is called a performance assessment part with, currently 3 performance tasks that students complete throughout the school year. But the way we would score the performance tasks would be very similar to the way we would score the free response sections of the AP exams, where there is a rubric that is used, and the student artifacts or the student submissions would be scored against the rubric for each of the performance tasks. So combining the scores from the 2 sections is very similar as well too. There's a lot of statistical and psychometric measures that are taken to combine the scores, just like every other AP exam that has a free response section. Combining the scores, doing a lot of equating, and following the assessment design for the Computer Science Principles course. The folks at College Board Research evaluation, and ETS folks will come up with one score for students, so a score from 1 to 5. I'm going to also add very quickly too that the scoring, the online scoring reports will be very similar to what students and schools already, receive. All of the online score reports that are available for other AP exams would be available for the AP Computer Science Principles exam.
Great, thanks so much, Lynn. The second part of the question is, since we haven't adopted the course yet, my question is, what is the best thing to do to prepare the students to take the course when it is offered? I'll have all our 7th graders in a quarter-long computer apps course and all our 8th graders in a quarter-long programming course next year. What would be the best preparation for high school classes leading up to and including CSP? What can I do next year in the high school computer apps or business classes to prepare them to take the CSP class the following year? Owen, would you like to start? And then at some point as a pilot, if I may join in too.
Sure, I think there are a few things to say. One is that this very much is going to depend on your school and the relationship. At least in one of these questions, it's about what goes on between middle school and high school. In another question, it's going to be how do you start students in a high school course to get them ready to go with computer science principles. And I think you're going to get different answers from different teachers in different schools. Certainly we've seen on our pilot a lot of different sequences of preparation for students. In the computer science principles course is designed, as I see it, to be a student's first course in computer science, if that's what if your school can do that. If it's not their first course, so if you can get them excited to take it by having them do Scratch or Hour of Code or somebody else's middle school curriculum, then that would be great, because the main point here is to get as many students interested in this as possible, and you might be able to go further and do different kinds of programming and different ways of doing the data analysis than if you were starting from scratch. So I don't think, as I understand it, there are any prerequisites from a computer science standpoint that College Board is going to say, and Lynn can come in and say more about that, but certainly the way it was envisioned when the course was started is there's no need to have a computer science course before this one, though we expect that many schools will, and that will influence how deep and how fast you can go through some of the material in the computer science principles course. That you should kind of treat that as what computer science principles curriculum will you be able to use given the background of your students, and kind of develop that based on your own schools and districts' needs.
Carol, if I may, it's Janet, right? Janet, if I may just join in for a second on here. When I had to choose it, I'm a high school teacher in Georgia, and when I was invited to pilot this course 2-3 years ago, and I was trying to see where it would fit in, I kind of felt it would be nice to have one computer science class before this for my students, and as such prefer that 10th graders take the course. Having said that, I've had a couple of successful computer science students who are freshmen. When I've talked to them, they've done a little bit of Scratch, and so a little bit of drag and drop visual programming, and some amount of, they definitely know their Microsoft Office skills, keyboarding quite well. When I think of a prerequisite for this course, I think students need to be ready to start thinking independently, being ready to be exploring ideas. There's a lot of independence that we want to give the students so that they can be creative and they can do open-ended projects. And I think they being emotionally ready for it is a lot bigger prerequisite. So you'll have teachers, a teacher recommendation may be a very good one for this course. Do you think the student is ready for an open-ended project-based AP course? Possibly. Thanks. Lynn, the next one is for you, and this is related to the auditing aspect. Laurie asks, will the expectation structure of the audit be similar to what it has been submitted in the past?
Yeah, thanks, Deepa. Yeah, that's a great question. So the short answer to that is yes, right? We will have an AP course audit process for computer science principals, teachers, or in schools that want to provide the AP label on students' transcripts. And so generally speaking, the process is the following. We will have developed syllabus scoring guides or syllabus guidelines to help teachers understand what the curricular requirements are and how they should present those on their syllabus. So the curricular requirements will be made available to teachers as soon as they're finalized. We're currently working on them. The development committee has drafted some, and we're conducting some analyses through a syllabus project right now to refine them and provide the resources we need for teachers to develop their syllabus. In addition to that, we will have, like all of the other AP courses, we will provide 4 sample syllabi that will that can be used for teachers to adopt if it makes sense for them to adopt and follow. That is an option for teachers. So teachers will then need to submit a syllabus and provide information as to how the syllabus aligns to the curricular requirements for the course. The review will be the same. The review is, goes through a team of reviewers, mostly college professors. Some high school teachers will be involved as well too. If a syllabus meets all of the guidelines or all of the curricular requirements, then they'll receive the go-ahead or the okay to label their course AP.
Cool. Great. Thanks so much, Lynn. Owen, what grade level, in your opinion, should be able to take CSP class in high school?
I'm sorry, I'm smiling because I'm looking ahead at some of the questions that have just popped into the window. I think that if you look at College Board official publications about what grade levels are appropriate, they will tell you that most freshmen are not ready for an AP course. AP is supposed to be a college course, and it's tough for a lot of high school 14 and about to be 15-year-olds to have the study skills and the patience and just the kind of academic and social experience to be able to sit down and go, okay, yeah, I'm ready for a college experience. And it's not really a college experience in the high schools, it's the high school equivalent of that. But I'll give you my own personal example, which I know isn't relevant at all. I have a son who just finished his freshman year. He's a very smart guy. I don't think that he would have been ready for an AP course just because he was trying to get used to being a freshman in high school. And College Board, I think, recognizes this too in their publications, saying that there are first-year students in high schools that are ready for an AP course. That happens often. But if you look at the scores of freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, you'll see that as a cohort, freshmen do not do as well on AP exams. Neither do sophomores. So as a group, they're not ready. And I think you have to kind of look at that on both an individual basis and a school basis and think, is that really the group that you want to be taking the AP course? Maybe they can take a different course and move into computer science principles where the requirements for completing the performance tasks and the end of course assessments are going to be different, and that might be a good idea there. And then you're going to have to kind of see on a school basis where students can take electives more easily. And I think many of you will find a different answer to that based on how your school works. So, summary, it depends. But first-year students, not the best students to take an AP course, according to the metrics I've seen.
Thank you so much, Owen. The next question, I think it's a question that both Lynn and Owen can answer from a totally two different perspectives. So we will first take focused on AP as an AP course, and then we'll go into a general CSP course point of view. So Lynn, Steve says, in our school district is a one-to-one laptop district, and we use MacBooks. Will using Apple products be detriment to teaching CSP? or will it really depend on what resources the teachers use?
Oh, hi, Deepa. Okay, so this is Lynn. I mean, the answer to that is we don't think that will be a detriment. I think that, you know, as long as the machines that they're using, you know, meet the requirements that are needed to administer the exam and, you know, access the students have access to the exam that way, I think it should be fine. And we are working to finalize what those requirements need to be for schools. And I don't think it makes, at this point in time, to my knowledge, I don't think it makes a difference whether they're Android or, I'm sorry, PC or Mac.
I think that if you have a school that has a one-to-one program so that every kid has a laptop, there are all kinds of great things that you're going to be able to do with those students because they're going to have their computer both in school and maybe not in school. That's one of the key things that we found out during the pilot of CS Principles this year is that some students, some courses, students do all their work at school because you can't count on them being able to do computer-based homework at home. Some programs tried to get some homework to be done that was unplugged in some ways, that you didn't require a computer, but having a one-to-one laptop policy with students, there are lots of great resources that you'll be able to use with Apple computers with your students. And if you had a one-to-one policy with a Windows-based PC, that would probably be the case too. Even a Chromebook, I think, for computer science principles, I think you'd be able to do all kinds of great stuff that the hardware and operating system are not going to be any drawbacks to computer science principles at all, which is not necessarily the case. For example, there's been a lot of discussion on the AP listservs about Chromebooks and Java, and that's tricky to do because they don't run Java. But for anything that runs online, which is almost all the materials that you're going to see in this course are things that run in a browser. Many of the national initiatives are trying to make things run in the browser. I see that Jill just plugged in a question about what about iPads, and I think iPads, in terms of being things that run in the browser, are reasonable. I have a personal preference that I think a laptop gives you some more to do than an iPad does, but I think that if you had everybody with an iPad, you could absolutely have a great course. You can't use Flash on an iPad, but Snap, which you guys are going to learn about, for example, runs under HTML5. Not that any of these technical things make any difference at all. If you have a device in a kid's hand, she is going to be able to make great progress, period. That's my answer. If you have a choice, everybody has their own preferences.
Great, thank you. All right, I have a slew, and I apologize. I was so busy listening to Lynn's and Owen's response. I'm going to quickly post one, and then I'm going to throw a huge number of them in a second into the window. Owen, I believe you will be able to take this one. So, how does the new ECS course, Exploring Computer Science, fit into the high school curriculum along with the AP CSP course? Would ECS be a good introductory course for CSP? You, sir?
I think this is a question that comes up a lot, and I think it's an important one for people to try to understand. And the key difference, as I see it, between these courses, and there's a lot of overlap in terms of both not just the content, but the kind of general idea of computer science being not just one thing. Exploring Computer Science is not an AP course, and that means that students do not have to take an AP test at the end of it. Obviously, students in an AP course don't have to take the test, but it's designed to get them ready for that. There is going to be an assessment for Exploring Computer Science, so for kids that, or school districts that, for which that would be a good thing, you're going to have that. But I think the key is Exploring Computer Science is a much more gentle introduction in that it doesn't go as deeply into some of the computer science topics. It's also a prescribed curriculum. If you're going to do Exploring Computer Science, you pretty much are supposed to do it the way that they've outlined it. Now, obviously, you can change things up as you go, but that's a little different than computer science principles, which can be realized in many different ways. The question was, is it a good introduction? I think it can be a great introduction. I think that computer science principles doesn't necessarily need to have an introduction, but you might get a lot of students taking Exploring Computer Science that decide, wow, this is way more interesting and fun than I thought it was going to be, so I'll take computer science principles next. Whether you decide to make it a formal prerequisite or not, I think that's a different question, and a trickier one to answer, because as soon as you sequence courses, it makes it harder for a lot of students to take it because they might not have that many electives in what they're doing.
Thanks. Lynn? This one's probably right up your alley. Our students don't have an elective until a junior year. We currently offer Microsoft Office Suite and HTML5 CSS and Dreamweaver CS6. Good Microsoft skills were mentioned. They only take a very brief intro to computer technology now. Typing skills are lacking in some some computer skills are lacking too. How strong of a math background would a student need is what Karen's asking.
Yeah, that's a great question too. I think it's important to understand what's required maybe of the current course. There are no computing prerequisites for the AP Computer Science A course, and I don't believe that we would want that to change for the Computer Science Principles course. And as far as a mathematics requirement, Algebra 1 is basically what is required for Computer Science A, and I'm betting that the development committee would agree to that once we finalize what the prerequisites are, that it would likely be similar to what we have for Computer Science A.
Great, thank you. Owen or Lynn, really, you both can fight for the mic right now. Would CSP course be the type that could get credit as the math or science course? And there were several people who said, oh, that's a great question. And it's definitely something that I, as a pilot instructor, am very keen to know if CSP could become a math or a science required. What are your thoughts?
Owen, I can maybe take the first stab at this, and I think it would be important to hear your perspectives for sure. So this question does come a lot, right, to the College Board. We have been approached by many folks in different states to kind of either assist or just get our stance or our perspectives on this. And bottom line, the College Board doesn't really take a stance on that. It is really up to each state to decide what makes most sense to them. But I can tell you that the trend right now for computer science is that if states are able to make a case for a graduation credit either in math or science, that it is likely to be more aligned to the math standards in each particular state or their math requirements. We've seen that in many states. I know that there are maybe now one or two that do count it as a science high school graduation requirement. There might be more than that, but the majority of them count it as a math requirement. We've also been, asked to try to propel the course as a higher level mathematics course. Just based on what I've seen and the requirements to do that, it's been very tough to do it. We're having a hard time being able to do that, but at any rate, we do think that there's probably a better fit with math requirements or math standards. That's sort of the trend that we've been seeing. Owen, do you have other perspectives on that?
Well, this is a question that I think is more that goes along with the statewide initiatives, and Code.org is leading the way in trying to make this course count for math and or science in a lot of different states, and they're doing the advocacy and talking to legislatures that need to do them. I think this is actually a little tricky in a lot of different parts of the education community. There are some people that think that we should work to make computer science count as computer science, and it's enough to stand on its own, and it's not a math, and it's not a science. And I think that if you talk to groups like the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics or the science organizations, that they don't really view computer science as a math or a science. And so that it's what we're doing here is I think an important first step to make computer science count in schools. And if counting as a math or science is the way to do that, then I think they're good and compelling reasons to go there. I think it gets tricky because Texas, for example, decided, oh, well, maybe it can be a foreign language. And then you have to be certified to teach a foreign language in order to teach it. A lot of this is going to depend on your school, because if it's a math course and you need a math certification to teach it, but what you have is a CTE certification, the whole landscape gets tricky. So I'm glad I don't have to think about these things, and that there are smart people other places that are thinking about them. I think it's a lot of a state-by-state basis, and even district by district, because I just came back from a visit to New York where I found out, oh yeah, their school has a CTE diploma. Not that their courses have to be that way, but because of the school having that, the teachers need to be certified to do career and technical ed, which some of them aren't. So now they have to go get recertified. So there are a lot of moving pieces there, and it makes it tricky.
Great. Fabulous answers. We have two questions here, and there is a plea for the Mathematica Wolfram course, so why not go with that one?
Okay.
Yeah,
I told Jeff that I would be happy to talk about that.
Please.
So I'm not sure who asked this question because I'm busy trying to pay attention here, but I think to me, this is not a Mathematica question. This is a Wolfram question. The Wolfram is a new language that the folks at Wolfram announced. It's the basis for what Mathematica is built on. But if you've seen their demo, it makes you think, wow, I got to do this. I got to use this for all my courses, computer science principles or anything, because it's going to give you access to all kinds of data in one step and be able to do things. Again, it's a demo. They make it look very easy to do a lot of interesting programming in a lot of different domains. But right now, the only way you can actually run Wolfram is on a Raspberry Pi, which makes it a little tricky to actually roll out in the classroom. But I've had a couple email exchanges. I sent email to the folks there saying, hey, I'd like to use this in my own courses. Plus, I think there are probably thousands of teachers that are doing computer science principles that would be really interested in trying to understand how they can use Wolfram in their classrooms. So I'm hoping to have a more definitive answer. They're supposed to be calling me to tell me, yeah, well, here's how you're going to be able to get it. Right now, you can't even find out when is it going to run on anything other than a Raspberry Pi. Mathematica itself doesn't interest me. I never really could kind of get my head around spending all my time running Mathematica, and I spend a lot of my time trying to think about, well, is this going to be good for our high school teachers? Because if I can't figure out how to make it work for me, it's going to be hard for me to figure out how to make it work for high school teachers. But I'm pretty hopeful that Wolfram might be something that people can use in computer science principles, and I hope we'll know something during the summer as we talk to them about what it is they're doing. Right now, I'd say the answer is no. Unless if you're going to have everybody in your school use a Raspberry Pi, I would like to come and learn it from you too. But I think that's going to be tricky to make happen. But it could happen. It's tough right now.
Great. Thanks, Owen. That, I think, was very helpful, is what it seems like. And in fact, whenever you get a chance to see Piazza, Lynn and Owen, you both should see it. There are several thank yous. There are the very appreciative audience here. Lynn, this probably would be something that you would like to pick up. Our school has been exploring CS Principles course content and believe that it should be taken by all of our high school students due to the importance of role CS plays in our personal and work lives today, as well as the value of teaching students valuable transfer skills. What is your opinion on this? Do you see this as a way to give our learners a step up in the light of STEM? That's from Anne.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that too. Well, the short answer for that, I would say, my opinion is that I think that's great. I think that, a large part of the philosophy behind building the framework for computer science principles was that this is so relevant for students. This is so relevant in our daily lives that, we wanted it to be accessible for a large number of students. And it is about diversifying and broadening participation, but it's also about the fact that this is very relevant, interesting, and the computational thinking practices that we've finalized in the framework can apply not just in the study of computer science, but in other related STEM. This person used the STEM acronym, so I would say yes, it is applicable across several STEM areas.
I'll add one thing. I just added this to the Piazza discussion, trying to keep up with it. So I'm also a big proponent that this is a great course and everybody should take it. But I think Jill maybe be the one that reminded. Somebody said, "Hey, wait a minute. Is every student in your school ready to take an AP course?" That might be the case in some schools, and it might not be the case in others. In which case, you might want to think, well, maybe there's a non-AP version of computer science principles. It could be ECS. It could be a hybrid because you might not want to use everything that's in exploring computer science, but you take the ideas in exploring in computer science principles and say, let's go with those because we want to have a world of educated cyber citizens that understand STEM and can thrive doing all their different disciplines. And that might not be an AP course because not every student might be ready for AP, but it might be a course built on the same ideas, the same big ideas, the same thinking practices, just with different assessments, and that means you could go more slowly or you could spend more time on something that you might be interested in. So I think those are great ideas.
Right, thanks. Owen, this one's also yours. Jennifer asks, I have not taught CS but hope to improve my own skills and hopefully teach it in future. I'm wondering about how teachers balance the amount of time they provide for students to debug with the hope of getting a certain amount of material. I believe that allowing students ample time for debugging would encourage them to explore on their own and try developing creative algorithms without too much stress and frustration. However, I'm sure a certain amount of material that needs to be covered in an AP class. This question stems from a conversation I had with successful software engineers a few years back, in which all of them said they had started programming at a young age, not at a school, casually with friends or family. How do we minimize the number of students turned off from CS by the pressures of studying it for the first time in a school setting with grades, exams, college credits, and whatnot hanging over them?
Okay. I don't think I can answer all those pieces, but I can tell you that for those of you that are on the Piazza site and listening to this MOOC, one of the great things that you're seeing is you're 2 weeks in and you're learning and getting excited about the ideas and how to teach it, but not thinking right now, how am I going to teach Scratch or get students using an Arduino or getting this program to debugged. And I think those are the main lessons that we've gotten out of our pilots is this course, because it's pretty open-ended, you can connect with what's interesting to students. So you can get them to be programming something that they might think is interesting rather than something that the teacher might think is interesting. And connecting with students is one of the big things that's designed to make this course appeal to across genders, across races. Everybody has a different interest, and that's not just true. I'm not trying to say that all women are interested in one thing, but you're trying to connect with students that, oh, I saw this data about something, and I can look at that data rather than looking at data that the teacher tells me to look at. So I think it's true that you can get frustrated by having to do things a specific way or a certain way, and debugging is one of those things. But one of the nice parts about CS Principles is the intentional open-endedness of the assessment in the performance tasks that you'll all be learning about in allowing students freedom to connect with what's interesting to them. I think that's a key feature of it. And the rest of it is school. Most kids at some point say, school, what am I going to do about school? Yeah, well.
Thank you. We are running very close to the end of time, but there's a really quick question, and there's a slight ambiguity in the question. What will be the ratio of different programming environments covered in the course? Example, Ruby, processing, Python, Arduino, Scratch, Alice, etc., etc. And it's not very clear if Danish means in the course that in the MOOC or in CSP in general. So, Owen, if you would like to take from your vision for CSP, what would be the ratio of programming environments that would be covered? And then maybe, Jeff, you can tell them what you plan to cover at the MOOC.
How about instead of telling you what I think is the best thing to do or what I would do, is to tell you what we've observed in the pilot schools. I'd say most of the pilot schools have used one or two programming languages. Most of them used a drag and drop language like Scratch or Snap or App Inventor. And those that used App Inventor, that might have been it. But the schools that used Scratch or Snap often had the students also program in another text-based language, but not always. So I think that you can do this easily with one language if that's what you think is best. I think two languages, if you can do that without having kind of a cognitive overload for the students, would be great. But that you shouldn't think about this as, oh, I can do 10 languages in the course. I think that's tough for anybody to do, especially a student that's doing this for the first time. And I'll let Jeff weigh in on what his vision for the MOOC.
Certainly, though the author has clarified on Piazza that he meant only CSP, but I think everybody would be very interested in knowing what Jeff has for the MOOC because it's a very vital part of CSP.
Well, we'll put a excuse me, a FAQ out soon on why we picked a certain language. We picked Snap, so that's why we're bringing on Dan Garcia next week. I've done my course in App Inventor, Snap, Scratch, and I've taught Alice for several years. We picked Snap because for the limited time that we have to devote for the programming task in this MOOC, barely a week, I think that I can get in and show you those concepts much more quickly with Snap. I love App Inventor, and I teach a summer camp in App Inventor, but I think if I only had a week, there's a lot of things I would have to set up that are kind of accidental or peripheral that wouldn't allow me to jump right in. So I can jump right in really quick with Snap, and that's why we picked that for the MOOC. So I'll have a FAQ I'm hoping to type up that will justify or explain why we've picked Snap over some of the others. Not to say that we suggest everybody using Snap. There's many people using all these languages effectively, but for the purpose of the MOOC and the short number of contact hours that we have, I think we selected Snap for that reason.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Jeff, I'm going to defer to you. I have two other questions, and the questions seem to get really, really good as time passes. But we've kept our guests here for 45 minutes, and they both are extremely busy people. So I have two questions. I leave it to you. Owen says he's not busy, folks, but don't believe a word out of him. I've never known someone who's more dedicated and a leader like him. So he'll do whatever it takes to make us happy. So Jeff, I ask you, shall I go ahead and ask these two questions? Whatever you say so works.
Lynn, are you okay with this, another couple questions?
Sure, it's fine.
Okay, great. So Lynn, this one is yours. You're going to love it. How will they test it? AP Computer Science A requires Java, and they used to require C++. Will the objective part of the test be a pseudocode? Michael wants to know that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, so currently, I think everyone understands that we have not designated any one programming language for the course. Specifically because, well, there are several reasons. We don't think that this course is about a particular programming language, and we didn't want students and teachers to get hung up about the technicality of a programming of any one programming language. Although I do want to emphasize that we all believe that programming is an important component of the course. So yes, the exam will assess programming, and I think the second part of the question was, will the objective part of the test be pseudocode? You know, my response to that answer is that maybe. I don't think that you know, I don't think that we have found a perfect solution to include any one particular programming language on the exam. So certainly we have built pilot items that use pseudocode. We'll need to collect, you know, the statistical data that we need to ensure that those items function well in our AP exams, and if they do, then maybe we'll see some of those on the exam.
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn. The next one's also yours. How do I explain to my principal which student should take AP Computer Science A, the programming course in Java, and which student should take AP Computer Science Principles? As I say it, I think we would like both of you to weigh in, both Lynn first and then Owen.
Okay, so sorry, I'm reading the question again. You know, yeah, this is a tough question. I mean, you know, teachers know their students much better than I do. I think that the description of each of the courses should be made available, accessible to students, and explained that there are similarities and there are differences in each of the courses. I think that if students are, you know, ready and prepared to take a programming course like our current Computer Science A course, they should take that course. It doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't take Computer Science Principles, because that certainly could be an option after they take the CSA course. But, you know, if students are maybe, and this is just from my perspective, if students want to engage with computer science concepts differently than just through programming, then I think the CSP Principles course, the CS Principles course is probably a better fit for them. So I think it's really a matter of informing students about the, you know, the major focus or the you know, the central pieces of each of the courses, and allowing them to have a weigh in on, you know, what might be a better fit for them.
Thank you. Owen, I think it'd be great if you could weigh in too.
I think that by and large what Lynn says is true, except that I think you have to look historically and see in the APCSA courses, and I know that this year a record number of students took those courses, took an APCSA exam, but the number of women taking this course is still really, really low. And that's the reason that Computer Science Principles started, was because of women and underrepresented groups not taking Computer Science Principles. So when we talk about students being ready to take it, in an abstract, I think that means one thing. And in the, when you actually get down and see what students are enrolling in the course, if you can get all kinds of students to take the course, then I think that you'll be good to, it doesn't matter which one you take them. But we know from evidence that that's not been the case with Computer Science A, that it's not been possible nationwide to get all demographics to take that course. And this one is designed for that. So if you can, I think that you need to kind of keep that in mind as you talk to your principals, is what are these courses designed for, and who are they designed for? In theory, they're designed for everyone, and I think that's key, that every student, regardless of, you know, kind of background, as long as you're capable of getting ready, you can do it. But why haven't women taken? And it's not just APCSA, it's my introductory course at Duke as well. They mirror each other, whereas my Computer Science Principles course has a lot of women and underrepresented groups in there. So I think maybe moving that question so the principal can understand it's not just what math courses they've had and what background they've had, but what are they going to be doing in this course, and what what might resonate with them so that they can succeed. Because even if you can do it, if it doesn't catch your interest and you end up not succeeding, it's harder to kind of maintain a program like that. So I don't think it's A or CSP. I think that's going to depend a lot on the teachers, what they can do, and what the student body can do.
How about the sequencing aspect? Should they take CSP and then APCS? Owen, Lynn? It's up for grabs. Both of you could answer this in different ways. And
I think you can go either way.
Yeah.
I think that it's more likely in some schools that a student excited by the programming part might say, whoa, I didn't realize programming was this great. I'd really like to take the next course that's more programming. But I know that we've seen on our pilot schools people that took APCSA and then had another elective and said, wow, I like the programming, but I know there's more. And now I can take computer science principles and find out more, and I'll be able to do the programming part pretty easily if I've done APCSA. So I think you can go both ways.
Yeah, I'd agree with Owen 100% as well too, and I'd also like to state that their College Board isn't really designating any sequence, right? So schools and teachers and students can make their own decisions about what what would be best for them as far as sequencing. But I agree with Owen; it could be either or.
great. There's been a lot of conversation going back and forth, but I don't see any questions. I think, and Owen has picked up some answers right there on the Piazza board answering to specific people. Yeah, Jill says that CSP recruited APCS. That's definitely been the case for me also. That's been my experience. I want to take a second to just introduce the other two silent people in the group for those of you who are new. We have Roy Black there and Jill Westerland, our two instructors, invaluable to our course's success. Many of you might have seen them at our night hangouts, and I've received so many emails thanking each one of them for their invaluable support. I do think that it is our instructors, including me, which makes it a better course than any other out in the nation, and we thank you. So I don't see any other questions. Jeff, please feel free to slap my hand if I have forgotten anybody. But otherwise, I'm going to hand over the mic to you so that you can wind up the...
Right. So thanks, Deepa, for moderating that, and again, thanks to Jill and Roy and Jeff and others who will be helping throughout the week with the Hangout. So I know that's going really well, and we wanted to make this MOOC experience more personal than you might have in other MOOCs. So being able to do that, I think, is bringing some extra kind of closeness to the community we're forming. So thanks to Lynn and Owen again for coming on. So such great expertise, and being the national leaders in this effort, really helpful to us to hear your thoughts. And many teachers have some great questions moving forward and want to implement this and hear from you all on that. So thanks, and we'll try to go out and look at more of the questions that came up that we weren't able to address specifically and try to get a response to some of those. So we're right at about an hour into here, so we should be wrapping this up. Thanks to everybody who joined us online. This will be on YouTube and archived. For those who couldn't make it, we'll put a link out to that on the Piazza site to point to that. So again, next Thursday will be our Hangout, not Friday, but next Thursday we'll have Dan Garcia join us and share some things with Snap. So again, my apology on the lesson on the bits and bytes. That's actually queued up, and please be checking for that. I will post when that's ready, so be checking your Piazza site for that. So thanks again, Lynn and Owen, and we'll be catching you online somewhere, and everybody have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.